My neighbor Jeff was in his driveway yesterday unloading bags of mulch from his truck. I counted them as I walked past. 23 bags. He'd already spread half his yard, and his shoulders were hunched forward in that particular way that says, everything hurts. When I asked if he needed help, he laughed this exhausted laugh and said, "Nope, I got it. Only way to prove I can still do what I did at 30. He's 56. His back is going to hate him today. Welcome to Living on a Prayer. I'm glad you're here for these 10 minutes, because Jeff's driveway moment has been rattling around in my head alongside these words from Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. Our passage today is called Rest When Burdens Weigh Heavy, and it's about something we're spectacularly bad at, accepting help when we're crushed under weight we were never meant to carry alone. Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Rest for souls. Not just tired bodies, but exhausted souls. Let's talk about what that actually means. First, we need to name what's actually crushing us. And spoiler, it's usually not the obvious things. Yes, life is objectively hard. Jobs demand more for less. Rent increases faster than wages. Aging parents need care while kids need college funds. Medical bills, car repairs, that weird noise the furnace is making, all real, all heavy. But those aren't usually what makes our souls weary. Those are circumstantial burdens, and humans are remarkably resilient when facing circumstantial hardship. What exhausts us at the soul level is the burden of performance, the crushing weight of trying to earn our worth through what we achieve, maintain, or prove. Jeff doesn't need to spread 23 bags of mulch to prove anything. His yard would look fine with landscaping fabric and wood chips. But somewhere along the way, he absorbed the idea that his value depends on his capacity to do hard things without help. That's a soul burden. That's what makes you tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. We carry soul burdens everywhere. The parent who believes they're only valuable if their kids turn out perfect. The employee who thinks asking for help signals incompetence. The person who can't rest on Sunday without guilt gnawing at them because productivity equals virtue. These aren't imposed by circumstances. They're self-imposed expectations we've baptized as necessary. And our usual solutions? They make it worse. When we're exhausted, we double down. We create systems to be more efficient at carrying weight we shouldn't be carrying at all. We buy planners to optimize our self-punishment. We listen to podcasts about productivity while grocery shopping, because heaven forbid we waste 17 minutes just buying food. We treat rest as something to earn rather than something to receive, which means we never actually rest. We just collapse occasionally and call it self-care. Or we swing the opposite direction into cynicism. We say, well, life's hard and then you die, so I'll just lower my expectations to nothing and be pleasantly surprised when anything works out. That's not rest either. That's just exhaustion wearing a different costume. The problem with both approaches is they keep us in control, hustling harder or checking out completely. Both strategies allow us to remain the manager of our own suffering. We stay in charge, and that's exactly what keeps us trapped. Because what Jesus offers in Matthew 11 isn't a better time management system or permission to quit caring. He offers something far more radical and, honestly, far more terrifying. Let's look at what he actually says, because the language matters. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. Not all you who have it together, not all you who've earned a break, all you who are ground down, worn out, carrying more than you can handle. That's the entry requirement. Exhaustion. Honesty about being at the end of yourself. Then comes the surprising part. Take my yoke upon you. Wait, I thought we were getting rest. Why are we trading one yoke for another? This is where we miss the whole point if we're not paying attention. Jesus isn't saying, drop your burdens and walk away free. He's saying, let me change what kind of burden you're carrying and how you carry it. A yoke in first century agriculture was a wooden crosspiece that connected two animals, usually oxen, so they could pull a plow together. The key word is together. You don't wear a yoke alone. And in Jesus' metaphor, he's not standing behind you with a whip, watching you pull. He's in the yoke with you, The burden gets shared, and more importantly, the stronger ox, the one who actually knows where he's going, sets the pace. That's the revolution hiding in plain sight. Jesus isn't offering to remove all difficulty from your life. He's offering to fundamentally change the nature of how you engage with difficulty. So what's the difference between the burden you're carrying now and the yoke Jesus offers? Your current burden says, your value depends on your output. Jesus' yoke says, your value is inherent because you're loved. Your current burden says, if you fail, you're finished. Jesus' yoke says, failure is data, not identity. Your current burden says, rest is for the weak. Jesus' yoke says, rest is how the strong sustain themselves. Your current burden says, you're alone in this. Jesus' yoke says, I'm pulling with you, and I know the way. Your current burden measures success by results. Jesus' yoke measures faithfulness by presence. This is why Jesus says his yoke is easy and his burden is light, not because life becomes effortless, but because you stop trying to earn worth you already have. You stop performing for an audience that isn't even paying attention. You stop carrying expectations that were never yours to bear in the first place. The Greek word for easy here is krestos. It can also mean well-fitted or kindly. A well-fitted yoke doesn't chafe. It's designed specifically for the animal wearing it. Jesus is saying, I'm not giving you a one-size-fits-all spiritual burden. I'm giving you a way of being in the world that actually fits who you are. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Accepting this requires surrender. Not the defeated kind of surrender where you give up and stop caring. The humble kind where you admit you were never meant to do this alone. Where you acknowledge that your worth doesn't depend on your performance. Where you let someone else set the pace instead of white-knuckling. Actually, instead of gripping the controls with desperate determination. This is terrifying for most of us. Because if we're not earning our worth, what happens when we fail? If we're not in control, what prevents everything from falling apart? If we rest, won't we fall behind? Jesus addresses this directly. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. Gentle, not demanding, not harsh with you when you stumble. Humble in heart, meaning he's not on a power trip, not using your dependence to manipulate you. He's safe to trust, but trust requires letting go. And letting go feels like dying when you spent your whole life believing your grip on things is what keeps you alive. What does this look like practically? Because theological concepts are wonderful until Monday morning arrives. It looks like the single mom who stops trying to be both parents and asks for help from her church community. Not because she's failing, but because she's learning that interdependence is strength. It looks like the pastor who admits he's burned out instead of preaching another sermon about joy while dying inside. Who takes a sabbatical not when he's earned it, but when he needs it. It looks like the student who realizes a B in chemistry while maintaining mental health is better than an A purchased with anxiety medication and zero sleep. It looks like Jeff in the driveway saying, you know what? Yeah, I could use help with these last bags. My back's reminding me I'm not 30 anymore, and that's actually okay. These aren't dramatic spiritual moments. They're quiet surrenders that reshape daily life. They're choices to trade the burden of performance for the yoke of partnership with someone who isn't interested in breaking you. But make no mistake, this is countercultural. Our world profits from your exhaustion. The economy depends on you believing you're only valuable when you're producing. Social media thrives on your performance anxiety. Entire industries exist to sell you solutions to problems you wouldn't have if you believed you were already enough. So, what actually changes when you take Jesus' yoke seriously? First, your capacity for rest expands, not because life becomes less demanding, but because you stop adding self-imposed demands on top of real ones. You sleep without rehearsing tomorrow's failures. You take a day off without guilt eating the edges of it. Rest stops being something you collapse into and becomes something you practice. Second, your relationship with failure transforms. When your worth isn't tied to outcomes, you can take risks. You can try things that might not work. You can be honest about what you don't know. Failure becomes information instead of indictment. Third, you develop sustainable rhythm. This is what easy really means. Not effortless, but sustainable. You can keep going not because you're tough enough to endure anything, but because you're wise enough to rest before you break. Fourth, you become gentler with others. When you're not performing for worth, you stop demanding that others perform for yours. You extend the grace you're receiving. You stop being threatened by other people's rest or success because your value isn't comparative. And finally, you discover that intimacy with God isn't another item on your to-do list. It's the yoke. It's the shared labor. It's the walking together that makes the burden light. Now, I'd be lying if I said this was a one-time decision. It's not. You don't pray a prayer and suddenly live unburdened forever. You'll pick up that crushing weight again. Probably tomorrow. Maybe 5 minutes from now. The question is, how quickly do you notice? How soon do you recognize that familiar soul exhaustion? And remember, you don't have to carry it. This is the practice. Noticing when you're performing instead of resting. Noticing when you're trying to earn love you already have. Noticing when you're in the yoke alone, dragging the plow by yourself, while Jesus stands there with his hand extended, waiting for you to remember he's been offering to share the load this whole time. And then, the hardest part, accepting the offer. Again, for the 1,000th time. There's no shame in the repetition. Learning to rest in a world that worships exhaustion is like learning to breathe underwater. It goes against every survival instinct you have. You'll forget. You'll panic. You'll grab the controls back. But every time you return to the offer, come to me, you who are weary. You're building new muscle memory. You're teaching your soul that rest is available, that you don't have to earn it, that someone stronger is already pulling, already knows the way, already values you beyond your output. So if this is resonating with you, if you're recognizing yourself in Jeff's driveway or in that soul exhaustion that sleep doesn't touch, do me a favor. Before you close this video, subscribe to the channel so these 10 minutes can find you tomorrow when you need them again. Drop a comment, even just a word or two about what you're carrying that you need to set down. Sometimes naming it out loud is the first step toward releasing it. And now, let's pray. Not a prayer at you, but a prayer with you. God, we come to you weary, so tired of trying to earn what you've already given, tired of proving what you've never questioned, tired of carrying weight that was never ours to carry alone. We accept your offer, not because we've figured out how to trust perfectly, but because we're too exhausted to keep going alone. Teach us what it means to be yoked with you, to let you set the pace, to rest not because we've earned it, but because we're loved. Help us notice faster when we grab the controls back. Remind us that your yoke is kind, that it fits us specifically, that it makes the unbearable bearable. Give us the humility to ask for help, the courage to rest, the wisdom to know the difference between the burden of living and the burden of performance. We're learning. Be patient with us as we learn. Amen. Until next time, friends, may God's grace and peace be with you.